Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about all of the different EX styles and explaining how they work, as well as all the different buffs that they give you, because they are incredibly powerful right now. We're really OP at the moment. Basically, we can raffle stomp any content in the game because of EX style. Now, before we begin the video, I did make a TLDR, so if you just don't care about me yapping all day, just go to this timestamp and it explains the most important parts to you immediately. Alright, so the very first thing I want to talk about is, of course, the EX styles. As we can see here under Learn Style Skills, we actually have three different choices. We've got Andros, Blitz, as well as Celeste. So basically, I'm just going to be calling this EX style A, B, and C, because that's what the developers call it, and I'm just going to copy them. It makes my life easier. So the very first thing that we need to talk about is what is the difference between all three of them. The difference between the three styles is how do you obtain certain criterias in order to earn specific buffs. At the end of the day, all three styles give the same two buffs, which are incredibly powerful. The first one is it gives you a flat 10% increase to your potency, and the second thing is it gives you 50% damage reduction. Now, in order to activate this, it's super duper simple. All you need to do is you Photon Blast, and then now we have a new After Blast. So basically, after you finish your Photon Blast, you can Photon Blast again. All right, once you've done that, you're going to notice you have this yellow bar as well as 4 little diamonds, and this is where it differentiates. For Andros, in order to fill up those diamonds quicker, you need to counter an enemy attack. However, we also have Andros Perfection over here, which allows us to counter Thin Air. If we go with Blitz, then you have to hit multiple times. It doesn't matter how many enemies you hit. You can hit 1 enemy, 10 enemies, 100 enemies, but it's based off number of hits, and you just need to hit a lot of times in order to fill up the bar to get all the diamonds. And then with Celeste, all you need to do is apply down to the enemy, so that can be physical down or elemental downs, and that will also fill up the bar quicker. So depending on what class you're playing and what's your play style will determine which EX style works best for you. So for example, in my case, since I am a Braver main, I prefer to use Andros simply because the Braver in general, especially the Katana Braver, is a very counter heavy class, which can benefit heavily from the Andros Perfection as well as just counters in general. However, I know all of this yapping probably doesn't explain anything, so I'm just going to show it to you guys because it's just a lot easier to see it visually. At least it is for me. So as we can see here, I'm going to pick up the Photon Blast over here. We're going to Photon Blast the boss. Bang, 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 bang. And now you can notice that my Photon Blast changes symbol. I have an After Blast where I get this cool little cutscene and boom, I hit again. Now you're going to notice next to my character, I actually have this yellow bar as well as these 4 little diamonds. In order to fill up these diamonds, they will fill up automatically over time. Every 15 seconds, you automatically get 1 diamond. However, when you fill up all 4 diamonds, you get a 10% potency increase as well as a 50% damage reduction. But there is a faster way to fill up these diamonds so that you don't only have 25% of this bar of that duration to benefit from all of these buffs. Because the moment this yellow bar goes away, as you can see it's about to end, we will lose that 10% potency increase as well as the 50% damage reduction. So I'm going to pick up this again. I'm going to Photon Blast one more time. You're going to see right here, boom, 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 boom. Okay, then we use the After Blast, wha-bam. And then, since I'm using Andros, which is a counter-based one, we can counter Thin Air, and boom, that is actually going to give us another diamond immediately. So now you can see how this works, right? Basically, as Andros, which is style A, we want to be able to counter the enemies multiple times in order to fill up these diamonds as quickly as possible so that we actually benefit from this extra 10% potency boost as well as the damage reduction. We can see here, boom. I already have it fully activated and I still had almost half of my bar left. But obviously in a real fight, if there's a boss actually attacking me, I'm going to benefit from this even more and I will fill up all 4 crystals very quickly to fully benefit from all of these buffs. So I'm actually going to show you against this guy as this guy does attack me. So we're going to go Photon Blast right here. We're going to use our After Blast. And now you're going to see as I counter, let's counter Thin Air, boom, counter this, boom. We're already at 2 bars. Let's counter this again. Boom. We're at 3 bars now. Okay, let's wait until he attacks me again. And we get 1 more counter. Boom. Okay. Well, we're at 4 bars already. You can see that we hit 4 bars incredibly quickly, even though I didn't even I failed to counter with the last one actually, but this is how you charge up all those crystals incredibly quickly with EX Style A, all right? It is different with EX Style B and EX Style C, but hopefully you guys understand the gist over here, where each ability is basically handshaking with your after blast buffs over here in order to enhance your playstyle and gain even more power. All right, now it's time to talk about EX Style B or Blitz, because Blitz works a little bit differently. As we can see over here, it's still the same concept of the photon blast into the after blast. So we're gonna photon blast right here. And then the after blast animation is different. We pull out a gun this time and we shoot them. But as you can see, again, we have that yellow bar, we have our 4 little diamonds. When you fill up all 4 diamonds, you get that 10% potency increase, as well as 50% damage resistance. Now, the difference is, how do you fill up these bars? To fill up the bars faster, you simply just need to hit the enemy many times. As you can see, we're already at 4 bars because I hit the enemy many times with my Lotus Lightning. So basically, if you're playing a class that hits multiple targets or hits a lot of targets multiple times very quickly, you might want to consider using Style B. Now, the nice thing about EX Style B is Blitz Cascade. Now, at the moment, at the time of this recording, this ability is still a little bit bugged and it doesn't always proc all the time. If you do have that bug, all you need to do is simply teleport to Central City or any main town hub and then teleport back to your combat zone. But Sega knows that this is a bug, and hopefully by the time that you're watching this bug has been fixed. But the main thing that is great about Blitz Cascade is when you cast a PA or a technique 3 times, it has to be the same PA or the same technique, and you cast it 3 times, you actually gain some PP. As you can see over here, you have 50 PP recovery, and your maximum PP also increases by 25. It's very powerful. So you can see over here, I'm actually going to cast Lotus Lightning. Lotus Lightning actually costs me quite a bit of PP. It will cost me 18 PP per charge, right? So we're going to cast it 3 times. I want you to pay attention to my PP bar. Right now it's at 199, all right? And now we're going to attack 171, and it actually increases. Look, my PP bar went from 199 to 224, but on top of that, my PP also recovered 50 PP while I was spamming Lotus Lightning. And this is very powerful because the cooldown is only 20 seconds. So essentially, for certain classes, you're basically going to be able to sustain your PP gains with this without needing the Force subclass or without needing any EX augments in order to gain more PP very quickly. Just this alone can help quite a lot. But of course, it doesn't end there. The PB cooldown reduction, it also reduces it by 1 second. So as long as you're proccing this every 20 seconds, it will also reduce your Photon Blast reduction by 1 second as well. Now, the PB cooldown reduction is not exclusive to EX Style B. All of the EX styles also have this. It's just the different criterias to proc it. With EX Style A, it was countering. With EX Style B, it was using the same PA or technique 3 times. Now with Celeste, it's a little bit trickier because with Celeste Flawless over here, you can negate enemy attacks. Basically, it's a free counter. So as we can see here, when we do a regular weapon action, you see that we get like a regular blue shield, but in this case, when you cast a spell, you actually get a yellow shield. So you can see over here when I'm charging up a technique, you saw that gold shield float around me for a second. That is essentially a counter. So when enemies hit you, when that shield is activated, you will not take any damage and you will actually retaliate with a counter. It's very nice. Now, what makes Celeste Flawless really nice is that you can counter red attacks or unblockable attacks as well. However, you do not take 0 damage like how a regular counter works. You'll take 50% less damage, and that's pretty much the selling point for this, because it allows a lot of classes which rely on charging up to be protected because you literally get that shield. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys have realized that this iframe window is actually really small. As you can see, when you charge up the technique, it only lasts for like 0.5 seconds. It's a very small window. However, for my Force mains as well as my Techer mains, there is the compound techniques, and the iframe for the compound techniques lasts incredibly long. I'm actually going to show you right here. So again, you can see the yellow shield, half a second on your charge up, right? Now watch compound technique. Look how long that yellow shield is there. It's still there. It's still there. Now it's gone. It literally lasts for like 3 seconds. So this is where that golden shield becomes very, very useful. So let's say you're fighting like Malevolent Darkfall's Dalian or Malevolent Darkfall's Vial or something, and you're like, oh my god, I'm gonna get hit by an attack. It's 100% I'm gonna get hit, and in all normal situations, I'm gonna die immediately, because that's a common thread with Force characters. Unfortunately, you're just really, really squishy. Well, if you just so happen to have your shield available and you have a compound technique available, just use your compound technique and boom, you take 50% less damage, and potentially if your timing is right, you might even just iframe the attack altogether. So this is just really, really nice just for survivability across the board. However, I'm getting ahead of myself again because I do need to show you how the Afterblast works with EX Style C. So again, we're just gonna Photon Blast right here, and then we're gonna Afterblast, or Zoltarak is like what I like to call it. Bam. And again, you can see we've got our 4 little diamonds as well as that yellow bar. So in order to charge up the diamonds, you basically just need to apply any sort of down onto the enemy. So that could be physical down or elemental down. Remember, it's not mandatory to do all of these things. However, by doing so, you will increase your damage significantly because you just get a longer duration of the 10% potency increase as well as the 50% damage reduction. But as you can see, throughout this entire time, as I've been yapping, I already have 4 bars without attacking anything. So it does fill up over time. It's just that the duration is severely shortened if you don't actually use the mechanics to fill up all the little diamonds to gain all these damage buffs. All right, welcome to the TLDR. I know a lot of you guys probably just skipped over here and like, Karo, just give me the Unga Bunga language. What do all of these do? Which one should I use? It's very, very simple. With EX Style A, basically, if you play a class that weapon action counters a lot, then EX Style A is for you, because basically you're going to want to Photon Blast twice, because remember there is the After Blast, and then in order to gain all the buffs, which is the 10% damage increase, as well as the 50% damage reduction, you just want to do as many weapon counters or weapon actions as possible in order to fill up that bar very quickly so that you can benefit from all of those buffs. Now for EX Style B, if your class goes pew pew and you hit a lot of targets many times, then you want to rock EX Style B, simply because with this you gain a lot of PP for spamming the same PA or technique 3 times, and then to gain all of your buffs from your After Blast, which is of course that 10% damage increase, as well as that 50% damage resistance, all you need to do is just hit a target or hit any target many times. So, you know, you can hit 100 targets once, you can hit 1 target 100 times, it doesn't matter. Just hit a lot of enemies and you will fill up that bar very quickly and benefit from all those boosts. And last but not least is EX Style C. As long as you apply any type of down to the enemy, this is the EX style for you. So for example, let's say that you play a technique user that can apply elemental downs, then you want to consider EX Style C, simply because after your After Blast, in order to fill up the bar to get all 4 diamonds, you need to cast different type of downs. However, this does not mean that EX Style C is locked behind technique users only. If your class uses PAs, it's also perfectly fine. As long as you apply physical downs, this will work as well. So it doesn't matter what type of down you apply onto the enemy, as long as it's a physical or an elemental, they all work. And as for the funny ability for EX Style C, it's you get a nice little shield. You get a free counter whenever you're charging up certain abilities. Now, this window will vary depending on what abilities you use, so you're gonna have to test and see how long it lasts for you. For most classes, the window is about 0.5 seconds. However, if you're playing a Force or a Techer, remember those compound techniques, those techniques actually allow you to keep that golden shield around you for around 3 seconds, which is pretty massive. So if you're just here for the TLDR, shoo, you're done. That's all you need to know. Now for my friends who are still watching the video, now we're gonna go a little bit more in depth, because every single style has an additional ability which does impact your playstyle a little bit. Actually, it's kind of important in my personal opinion, but For the Unga Bunga players, they're probably never going to notice it. So for those who are still watching, with EX Style A, we actually get Andros Absorption over here. You may have noticed that after using your PB and the Afterblast, that with EX Style A, your maximum HP actually increases, and you may notice that you get some pseudo lifesteal / HP regen while you're just fighting enemies in general. And that is because of Andros Absorption over here. As you can see right here, after activating your Afterblast, the first normal attack you deal will grant a buff for a certain period, damage dealt will be increased, and HP will be recovered each time you land an attack. And on top of all of that, your maximum HP will also be increased for a set amount of time. This is actually pretty massive, so you know, that's what Andros Absorption does. Now, as for EX Style B, you actually get this additional ability called Blitz Decay Rounds. So after activation of the Afterblast, the first normal attack to hit an enemy will weaken the surrounding enemies, and you basically just deal additional damage to all of them. But the kicker is potency increase based on distance will always be maximized for attacks on these enemies. So remember certain classes, Gunner, where you have to be a set range, or Ranger as well has to be in a set range to get the sweet spot to maximize damage? Well, you don't need to care about that anymore as long as you're attacking the enemies that are marked. All right, so this is definitely very nice, where you can stand a billion miles away, you can stand point blank range, it doesn't matter. So this is a nice little thing to have. But again, for all my Unga Bunga players out there, you're probably never going to notice it. And last but not least, but probably the most impactful one, is EX Style C over here, because as we can see over here on Celeste Reiteration, after activating an Afterblast, the first active skill that consumes a gauge or focus gauge will have increased damage for a certain period, but on top of that, the gauge or focus gauge consumed with that skill will recover a certain amount, and the skill's cooldown will be reduced. The crazy thing about this ability is cooldown reduction rate 70%. So this is what makes EX Style C so powerful, especially for my technique users out there, because you're simply just going to be able to spam more skills and pump out more DPS because of this extra cooldown reduction and just more damage overall. So definitely take advantage of the EX Style. They're all very, very powerful. There is no best EX Style that every class should just use, you know, one specific one. It's very dependent on your personal play style. So again, in my case, since I am a Braver main, I prefer to use Andros. However, I can also use Blitz. Personally, I actually use Blitz when I'm PSE bursting, when I'm just killing a ton of random mobs, and if I don't have a Force as my subclass, because with Blitz Cascade, especially in a PSE burst, I can just hold down my right click with Iris Gale and just AoE the entire screen down, and since I'm literally spamming the same PA 3 times, I proc Blitz Cascade and I get my PP back. So it's very easy to sustain a lot of spamming of the same ability in a PSE burst. However, if I were to fight a boss, for example, let's say that I go to Malevolent Darkfall's Vial, then I'm definitely going to be picking up Andros over here, because with the Braver, I'm going to be countering a lot, so I'm going to be able to activate all those crazy boosts in order to supercharge myself and gain a lot of damage. Something that I would not really use on the Braver would be Celeste, unless maybe I decided to play a Bow Braver, but personally, I don't really see a use case with Celeste. Personally, I think Blitz or Andros is probably the way to go. So at the end of the day, there is no right answer. You can play whatever you want, however you want. Just understand how they work and where you're getting all your extra buffs and damage from. And for those who have still stuck around, you need to read your second ability over here. Andros Absorption, Blitz Decay Rounds, as well as the Celeste Reiteration. These are very, very powerful, and once you understand what they do, you can do a lot of fine tuning in order to squeeze out additional damage and perfect your play.
Special thanks to all the members for supporting the channel. It really means a lot to me. Thank you again.
But yeah, that's all I wanted to cover in today's video. Hopefully you guys found it helpful. If you did, I would appreciate a like and a subscribe, and I'll see you guys in tomorrow's video. Bye.